of allegiance. Please join me in rising. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you. And we have with us in person, we have Supervisor Pfifferich, Supervisor Robinson, Supervisor Drabeck, Supervisor Marash, Supervisor Arstead, and virtually we have Vice Chair Dickinson and Supervisor Boots and myself. And so we have a quorum, and we'll move on to item number 3, and that is public comment. Is there anyone wishing to address the executive committee? I had no one approach myself and no one approach the clerk. So we will move on to item number 4, approval of the minutes of the March 14th, 2024 Executive Committee meeting. What is your pleasure? They were in the packet. Motion by Supervisor Robinson and second by Supervisor Arstead. Any discussion on the minutes as presented? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the March 14th, 2024 Executive Committee meeting minutes signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion is carried. Thank you, and is unanimous. Do we have a number?
Would the person who just joined by phone identify yourself, please?
Hi, Kim. This is Supervisor Jacobson. I was having trouble with the WebEx line.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will then move on to item number 6, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy, and we have none. And we'll move on to education presentations and committee discussion. Item number A, a review of the standing committee related ordinance update section 204, including mission and duties and responsibilities and jurisdictions. Administrator Lutter, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and all of you from your standing committee discussions. This is really just a continuation of that, so I'll be brief. I'm also still getting over a cold, so please bear with me. Within section 2.04, this committee, the executive committee, is under subsection 3. Your role, as you clearly understand, is, again, that leadership and development for primarily the strategic plan, but also the coordination you provide for the work of the entire board. In terms of committees that frequently come before you, you oversee me, which then means my department, any of our issues, new personnel, for example, or budget amendments that would come from my department would come before this committee. As I said before, the strategic plan with all of your committees is really the primary focus of shaping, or one of the primary areas of focus that shapes your agendas. That is true for this committee as well. Unlike some of the other committees, you have relatively limited departments. As I said, the county administration department comes to you, but also in terms of other committees of jurisdiction, you have the rules review committee that is formed on in the second year of each term to take a look at the existing rules and make any suggestions. But really, it's relatively limited in terms of those other reporting relationships. That said, on occasion, there have been task forces that have come back to this committee as their primary area of jurisdiction. But overall, those are kind of the big picture areas from my perspective of the executive committee. But happy to answer any questions that new members may have, or allow past members or current members to offer their thoughts on areas of focus for the executive committee relative to ordinance 2.04 sub 3.
Okay, I open it up for discussion by the executive committee. Any thoughts or questions by the executive committee on our roles and responsibilities? I think one of the things that sometimes comes up is, because rules reviews the rules, sometimes it becomes a question of how are the rules interpreted by a committee or another committee or even some board members. So that is the responsibility, the oversight of the rules are the responsibility of the executive committee. So that does come here from time to time. Any other discussions? Other thoughts? Okay. We will then move on to introduction of the departments and entities and often appear before the committee. Lance?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, already referenced this, but I just thought I'd pull up the annual budget and the county administration page just to kind of refresh what makes up the county administration department. Again, I come before this committee. In your next item, we'll talk about the work that you've done over the last term or work that frequently comes before you. Certainly one item that I have great interest in is the preparation of the annual work plan, which we'll get to later today, but also my appraisal, my evaluation. This committee is very intimately involved in that. So I do report to this committee on a fairly regular basis. Just to give you a little bit more information as to how what the makeup of the county administration department is. You'll see that we have, of course, Deputy Administrator Holman. Our Justice Services Coordinator, Laura Yari, is also within our department. The Senior Administrative Specialist in my department is Tasha Rinaldo, who you very often see communications from. And then the next two positions I wanted to just take a couple of minutes to talk about. Those are relatively new in terms of their creation. A couple years ago in 2021, we created the Public Information and Communications Coordinator position, which from my perspective has been a real asset for the county. That was identified actually in your comprehensive plan in 2016 as a gap. And it took us some time to develop the strategy to fill that, but shortly after coming into the role as being selected as your administrator, I really tried to make that a priority. And Sarah Severson in my office has done an outstanding job working with all of our departments to really, I think the biggest asset she brings is she really has a very keen ability to put herself in the shoes of the various audiences that we're trying to communicate with and ask very sound questions to make sure that we're communicating effectively with those audiences. And help us sometimes see audiences that we didn't know were out there. She works very closely with all of our departments, the sheriff's office, during elections with Kim. Anytime we have anything of significance, we truly try to get her involved. She's done an exceptional job of taking our budget document. If you go back and look, maybe 2017, 2018, even 2020, I do think you've seen improvements in the budget document and the way that we convey information. But since that time, since she's come on board, you really have seen kind of that budget transform and be a much more robust document that provides information and context for, I hope, for the board members, but also very importantly for the public. She's also a very important asset relative to communicating with our employees. So kudos again to the county board for identifying that as a need back in 2016 and the step of creating that position in 2021. Then in 2023, we added the data officer position. It's been my experience in county administration that I think it's a very reasonable request that board members said, well, help us understand this, or do we have any data on that? And we do have a lot of information we collect. I referenced the sheriff's office already in my communication with relative to Sarah's work as the public information and communications coordinator. We collect a lot of information, but do we gather valuable insights from it? We report to the state for a lot of things. We keep a lot of information in the event that someone asks a discrete question about it, but what insights do we get? Do we really drive operational improvements? I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and that was one of the reasons we created that data officer position. Plus, I know all of you have seen the communications from the Counties Association, or certainly from the National Association of Counties, talking a lot about data initiatives happening around the country. So trying to make sure we're heading in the right direction relative to that work. We hired Michael in the latter half of 2023, and she has been a real asset. I just was meeting with her before coming to this meeting, trying to kind of build the pathway to a data dashboard. Now, I've learned a lot from Michael in the recent past about what does dashboard really mean, and it is going to be a path. It's going to be, quite honestly, many years to do that. Kind of the example we've used as the vision we have is Montgomery County, Maryland. And I was informed that our budget is 3% of their annual budget. So we set our sights high in terms of what we want. I have that problem sometimes. So it's going to take us some time, and it's been about a decade journey for Montgomery County. But she's really helping us try to start to visualize what that path is going to be, to move from just having information to having a reporting mechanism, which is more static, and then ultimately the long-term vision is a data dashboard, which is kind of more closely aligned to not quite real-time, but closer to real-time reporting of information. So that's how the department is organized. Again, the work that we bring before you is largely driven by the work plan that you drive for administration. Happy to answer any questions anyone has about the department, or I'm not going to read the highlights from 2023 or the things we're working on in 2024. We'll certainly spend a lot more time talking about that. But really, the work of administration, as I always frame it for my team, is, our job is to facilitate the will of the board and to ensure that the organization is run in an effective and efficient manner.
Okay, questions on the operations of the administration and the departments that come before this committee on a normal basis? Supervisor Robinson, please.
Just a request, could we have, a presentation on what's going on with the data person? I think it would be of interest to the committee chairs, in terms of whether there's opportunities for us to use data in our work. So at some point in time in the future?
Yeah, we can do that. We've had, you'll recall from the position description when it was created, the vision was starting with the justice system, because that is an area where there's always been a kind of a request for us to have more data available. And we've had a couple of presentations to the CJCC, but we'd be happy to do that. I know, quite honestly, right now, Michael is working on a grant application through the Department of Justice to get some federal funds available to really help us move in that direction of data reporting and then a data dashboard long term. So happy to kind of bring that in front of you. We're going to apply for the grant. There's, I believe, they were anticipating handing out $2.7 or $2.8 million nationally, which is not a lot of money. So probably a handful of communities at best, but we want to at least have our name in the hat from which they will pick to see if they can help us with some of that, some of those technology costs, because the technologies that we're talking about for this sort of work are really, really expensive. But yeah, we can certainly get Michael on the docket to come in and talk a little bit about where we've been thus far. And she has done a nice job just about finding resources that already exist for us to kind of see how we compare. One of the things we presented recently to the CJCC was the Wisconsin Circuit Court Access, or CCAP, data that's available that shows how Marathon County compares relatively under a number of measures to other counties. And it has been my experience, sometimes we focus like at least I did when I was a kid, you focus on, you get your test paper back, and regardless of whatever percentage you get, I got maybe 95% of these things right, you focus immediately on the things that you got wrong. We have that kind of inclination here as well. We're actually doing very, very well in our justice system relative to other counties in terms of case clearance rate. We have a lot of opportunities, but Michael has been helpful on that. So we'll perhaps next meeting we can have a update.
The other thing I would invite you to do is to, if you haven't had the opportunity to go onto the NACO's website and go to the Counties Matters database, there is a tremendous amount of information on that on NACO's website, on the Counties Matters website, because that database is they bring in information from multiple different resources and data sets, and then you can compare Marathon County to any other county in the United States. So of the 3,068 other counties out there, you can compare yourself to whichever county you want to you choose to. And so the data is updated to the most pertinent data that we have, that NACO has. And again, I encourage you, if there's a desire to look for data that's pertinent to Marathon County, at least that's a starting point. I don't know, it doesn't have cumulative or history, so you can't compare where we were. It gives you a statistic based on and information based on the data that's in the data sets. So I would clearly encourage each of you to look at that. Supervisor Dickinson, please. Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
That's fine. Thank you. I was just going to concur with what Supervisor Robinson was asking. I was also going to ask, do we have a job description for this position? I know
yes,
we had
do.
some information, but I don't know if there's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, we do, and we can include that in the packet when we do the informational presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Other discussion? Okay, we will move on then. A brief overview of last term discussion and action. So I wanted to actually look over what, the accomplishments that we had the last term in light of the next agenda item, and then also discuss items that we anticipate coming before the board this term. And one of the things, one of the anticipated things that I think is going to be critical is, and this committee is ultimately responsible for moving to the full board, and that is the comprehensive plan update along with the strategic plan update. The vice chair is charged with, under our rules, the oversight of that. But the reason that it is so critical is there's another plan that needs to be updated that coincides with the update to the comprehensive plan that has to take place before December 31st of 2024. The farmland preservation plan, it needs to be updated by December 2024, and there has to be linkage in the comprehensive plan to the farmland preservation plan. If we fail to do that, we are going to then put in jeopardy any of the farmland preservation tax credits that the farmers in Marathon County currently are eligible to receive if they are participating in farmland preservation and are in total compliance with all of the requirements. And that is in real terms, in real dollars, significant money in the county. I was, when I was in the private sector, private practice of tax preparation, I would say 20% of the farmers participated in farmland preservation, and it amounts to dollars per acre that they get back from the property tax on their income tax return. And if we lapse and don't have the comprehensive plan updated and tied to the update to the farmland preservation plan, DADCAP has said point blank that farmers will be ineligible, and there has to be that linkage between the comprehensive plan and the farmland preservation plan. So I wanted to put that on everybody's radar because that is going to be a huge lift that we are going to have to get done by December 31st. So that the farmers are eligible to continue to receive those tax credits. Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
Thanks, Chair Gibbs. So are you, in making that statement, are you saying then that the only, not the only, but the focus needs to be on the comp plan being updated in a section related to farmland preservation by the end of the year?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
At a very, very minimum. Now, if we choose to, we can update. There's a lot of things in the comprehensive plan that potentially is data that may need updating as far as various things throughout the comprehensive plan. There's a lot of information in that comprehensive plan. So I'm not saying that's the only one, but that is one that is absolutely critical for participation in the farmland preservation program because the farmland preservation plan is required to be updated by DADCAP.
So as a follow-up to that,
Go ahead.
if I could,
Please.
do we know of any other kind of statutory requirements like this that, or other related requirements that have to be done by the end of this year related to the comp plan? Is someone looking at that? Is that, whose responsibility is that for that? Thank you.
Administrator Leonard will address that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dickinson. I think that's a great question. The staff at Conservation Planning and Zoning are kind of taking a look at that. They're the ones that have kind of identified, as Chair Gibbs referenced, that the most pressing need relative to the update of the comprehensive plan is based on that farmland preservation linkage that was referenced. The operational question then that flows, I think, is what you're alluding to. And that is, do we do a kind of a quick update to check the box, for lack of a better term, relative to the farmland preservation piece, and then figure out, do we do more of a robust amendment to the comprehensive plan and then an update to the strategic plan, or do you flip those two? I think those are all conversations to have, and I'd be happy to bring to have Conservation Planning and Zoning come to this committee, or even just sit down with you, Vice Chair Dickinson, based on your leadership role relative to those two, to kind of come up with at least a proposed course of action. But as of right now, the primary focus that Conservation Planning and Zoning is looking at is relative to that farmland preservation update.
And just to give a little bit more context, in talking to the CPZ director, this wasn't anticipated. They were anticipating an update to the farmland preservation plan, but they got clarification from DADCAP that said there had to be linkage into the comprehensive plan, and that it just passing or a mentioning of it in the comprehensive plan was not going to be sufficient, and that without it, they would deem that the farmers would be ineligible to receive that credit. So that's what precipitated the necessity to at least open the discussion with the necessity to have that comprehensive plan update to include the farmland preservation update.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I was just going to say I look forward to making sure we get this done. Thank you.
Oh, the CPZ director is with us, joining with us. So if she wants to please add anything that I have omitted, please, by all means. Lori.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think Chair Gibbs and Administrator Leonard covered most of the main points. It was just recently brought to our attention by DATCAP that the way we updated the farmland preservation plan in 2013, the requirements for making sure that it's consistent with the comp plans in our county changed. So in the last 10 years, they have changed those requirements. And as Chair Gibbs and Administrator Leonard alluded to, this does mean we need to open up the comp plan to include the adopted farmland preservation plan as an appendix, as well as make any necessary changes to make sure any references to farmland preservation in our current comp plan are updated according to the farmland preservation plan. That farmland preservation plan was brought before ERC earlier this year. That draft has been reviewed. It's been through a couple rounds of different open houses and public comments. It now sits with DATCAP for their administrative review of the farmland preservation plan. We do expect that back at the end of this month, with the idea that we would be bringing it to the ERC and then the county board in June and July for adoption. That would be the farmland preservation plan. So then, I think our thought process from CPZ's standpoint was that possibly this is just a really quick amendment to the comp plan that needs to be achieved by the end of this year, because as Chair Gibbs said, if we don't, then we have many farmers who stand to lose their ability to get those credits. And then a longer or more comprehensive update of the comprehensive plan might also could get underway at the same time, with the idea of tracking towards 2026 for adoption of that. We are not aware of any other plans at this point that have that same statute requirement that would require us to update our comp plan by the end of this year. So.
Okay. With that, any questions on that specifically? Okay, anything else that we want to review, significant milestones over the last term? I think one of the changes that did take place that we did was implemented in the second year of last term, and that was the budget process. And there's a little bit of a modification, obviously, with the election this year taking place. So we're going to have to, I think some of it was called for already in April, and some of it in May. That because of the election, that process may be a little bit more delayed, but I think I think the opportunity for additional improvements are always there, available for this committee to oversee and look. Supervisor Marash, please.
What is the status on the large assemblies ordinance and that work group?
Lori, you want to take that? Lori,
Sure. So we did. Yeah,
Okay.
So we did meet with the work group prior to the end of the last term. The goal there was to tie up comments that we had received from, I can't remember, I think it was the February and March committee and county board meetings. So we incorporated those comments and made a few corrections to sort of stop the Assembly's ordinance there with those comments. Now the idea would be that we will start bringing it back to committees in the next couple months to see if there's additional comments, or if someone wants to take action to bring it back to the county board for consideration again. And Administrator Leonard, I'm not sure if you'd want to add anything else there.
Nope, I think that's exactly right. It's just got to go through I think the work group's work is largely completed. We made a couple of those changes that Lori referenced, but otherwise now it's to each of the standing committees and whatever process the board wants to go through to move toward consideration and potential adoption.
Other items of focus? Okay, then let's move on to Supervisor Robinson, please.
I think we would want to continue to be sort of that coordinative role. And I look to the issue of that conduit borrowing for the renewable natural gas, where issues were brought here, and then we looked at which committees should play what role in the reviewing of those policies. And I would think that would be something we would want to continue to do and coordinate the work and delegate certain aspects of the work to the committees.
Absolutely. Other discussion? Last term's discussions, items. Okay. On that same vein, then, discussion on regarding potential areas the committee's focus during this term. Supervisor Robinson?
Just going over the committee's responsibility, it's not explicit in there, but it's sort of that legislative connection. And I think that in the past, we've looked for things to come through this committee dealing with the legislature. But I think that there are potentially a number of items, including the courts and the funding and support. And I think from a coordinative role, it'd be important for us to get those updates and then just tracking what's going on in the legislature. There are a number of things that affect us materially, and both in terms of communicating to them what our priorities are and then responding to legislation. While it's not a specific concern, I think it's something that we as a county need to get better at.
Well, I think you're spot on. I think one of the things that, right now, obviously we're in election season for the new legislature to take place, and they've adjourned, but starting this fall, the governor will be, directing the various departments to provide their projected budgets. WCA is working, to what is its priorities to be working on. Because the budget in earnest then kicks off in January and February with the new legislature. So we need to be, as the old adage goes, if you're not at the table, then you become the meal. So I think it is crucial upon, and some things come up in departments and committees. But I think we need to be one of the major focuses that I know that WCA is going to be concentrating on is the criminal justice system and the funding availabilities and the potential, I will call it, maybe not fulfilling some of the commitments that the state has made in some of the areas in the criminal justice system. So, in the shortfalls. So, and providing that feedback of how that impacts Marathon County and the citizens in Marathon County is critical to understanding where there's potential opportunities for. Anything else? Vice Chair Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think another focus is as we redo this comp plan, we're really going to rely heavily upon the standing committee chairs as well as department heads to really drive that. I want to make sure that I am engaged with all of those persons. But I just want to make sure that, we're all kind of focused on that and just kind of make that comment. So I look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Other discussion, other items or potential areas the committee should focus on this coming term? Okay, let's move on then to item number E, and that's an overview of the administration's 2024 work plan and the opportunities for changes as they arise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll be quick on this one because, as you can see in the packet, Kim did a great job of putting the previous document in there that was approved. Ultimately, there were some modifications made to even that document by the board at your adoption. For those of you that have seen the work plan before, the document in the packet is the summary, just kind of the individual projects that are listed. I like to present a progress document to you, and my hope had been to have that done and in your packet, but I've been derailed by a cold at the end of last week that didn't let me get to that, and then I'll talk real briefly about an announcement on Monday that I think also is going to have some impact on the work work plan items, but my goal is to have that progress document updated, and I will bring that to you at your next meeting. And while we don't have a formal policy requiring this, my inclination is to make a presentation to you on a regular basis relative to the work plan. I'm thinking no less than quarterly. I'll have kind of a progress document with new work being done since my last report, as well as a visual reporting of our progress, whether it's kind of complete, substantial progress has been made, minimal progress, or no progress. So I'll have that by your June meeting. And then speaking to, as Chair Gibbs alluded to, kind of the fact that some of these things are fluid, they are listed in the priority order that the board ultimately adopted them, with some modifications that I'll put in the other document that the board made at your voting meeting. But we are going to need to move some of the timelines, like for various things like the budget, for example, based just on elections. But also on Monday, one thing that has taken a considerable amount of my time thus far through the week, and it will certainly over the next couple of weeks, is on Monday, Christy Palmer, our finance director for 23 years in the county, who's done a great deal of things, provided me with a notice that she is moving on to retirement after those 23 years, and she will be doing so at the end of June. So we are moving very quickly to get that finance director position. We've reviewed the job description. We're going to be posting on Friday. Christy is, as all of you know, vital to a lot of the things that we do, and this is a very important time in the county's fiscal calendar, not only with respect to budget kickoff in terms of education and gathering information, but we're also really in the heart of audit. So some of the things that I would like to be making progress on right now are quite honestly just going to be lesser priorities than they might otherwise be. That said, our team in finance is very, very skilled. So we're meeting with them to talk about what additional supports we might be needing. And I'll be meeting with Chris, my deputy, and Christy will be meeting to really make sure we have a plan in place. We've already spoken with our auditors. They should be on site next week to keep making progress on the audit. One really good piece of news that for the audit, and also one of the items on the work plan, is that we've, after, I hesitate to even guess how many hours of work collectively through city, county IT, our finance department, the city of Wausau's financial department, our consultants, we were finally able to get our budget loaded into the Workday system, and now all departments are able to run those budget to actual reports. So I'm very happy to report that at your next meeting and at all of the next standing committee meetings, and in fact at finance next week, we will have budget to actual reports through the first quarter of this year. So that is a very important piece of progress that we haven't had here, and not only under this new financial system, but as Chair Robinson, the chair of HR Finance, points out very often, we had better reporting back in the 70s than we've had in the last 15 years. So very happy to report that, and Christy and her team have done a great job. So that is helpful. However, finance is going to be in a really, it's going to be challenging. Make no mistake about it. Christy does a lot. She has the lion's share of experience in that department by a long shot. But we're going to work through that and make sure we're delivering on the things we need to deliver on. But that, I will have a more robust progress report at your June meeting. I apologize for not having that done, but that's kind of what happened this week that has inhibited my ability to move that forward. But if you do have any specific questions on any projects, I'd be happy to answer them. We have made a fair amount of progress. Like I said, I am very happy to report the financials have finally been able to come through the new system.
Well, I think that bodes well to actually, because of the changes that happen just on the day-to-day operations of the county, I think that it's incumbent upon us to understand, you know, the expectations that we have for the administrator and the administration department. We can't continue to pile up much more because we've got a work plan right now that is probably double what any other administrator ever has had. And so I just caution us as leaders of each of the departments or each of the standing committees with understanding that as something like this would happen, and congratulations goes out to Ms. Palmer on her choice of retirement. But that and her job is critical to the budget development, the budget policy, and so that does take away the administrator's ability to address some of these other items for at least the short term and maybe even potentially a big part of this year's budget development because we're going to be bringing on a new finance director at some point. So I bring that out only so that people understand that it's not that the administrator wants to avoid, the requests of each individual supervisor or as they are brought forward by the committee. It's that there's still only so many hours in a week that the administrator can work. And when I approve his hours every week, I can tell you that there's never been one that has been less than 47 or more hours a week that he's working. So, but that being said, like I said, I just want to be clear that as the operation of this county and the 700 employees that are ultimately his responsibility, that we temper our expectations that he can focus on a particular issue that we have that we want, that we think is a priority. Other discussion? Work plan. Supervisor Marash, please.
Under 3A, the conduit bonding, have we had any updates for the Vandergeest project?
We've been in contact with, I've been in contact both with the attorney leading that project and also Mr. Coyle, who is the representative one of the representatives that appeared. My understanding from speaking with their attorney is they're still focusing on some of the discussions with the private equity backing. And I know Lori's probably still on. Lori, Kirsty, and I have had a couple of meetings with various representatives from the project requesting some draft documents that they had indicated they have had relative to agreements with other municipalities. We haven't heard back from them, but I did confirm again with their lawyer that they're busy doing other stuff right now and they'll circle back. To be honest, if they don't come back soon, we're going to not be able to get through your committee process in a timely fashion to allow them to get those agreements in place. And Kirsty, Lori, and I have made that clear to them that, we have a process. The county board has a process to work through standing committees, and that's going to take some time. So I don't know, Lori, if you've had any additional contact since our last series of emails, but that's the most updated information I've had.
I have not, no.
Other questions on the work plan? Supervisor Drabek, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was just wondering, going back one conversation to Kirsty Palmer, she represented the Joint Review Board on the TIF committees as well. Have you considered a replacement for that yet, or?
So that, by Marathon County policy, you have designated the finance director as the representative on the Joint Review Board. So whoever is selected ultimately for that position would move in to perform that task. But that is on my list of one of the things that I will need to onboard the new person on.
Well, it would be up to the full board if it wanted to move in a different direction, rather than having the finance director having an elected position, elected person, if it were the chair of the finance committee, or if it were someone as the chair of the board or vice chair of the board, whomever the board wishes to potentially move that direction, or if we want to leave it. It's a discussion that we could have, but I think at this point, the expectation would be that the new finance director, based on the current direction from the board, is.
Thank you.
Supervisor Marash?
Has the gap analysis started for the opioid settlement money yet?
I haven't spoken with Health Officer Scudari, but I can follow up on that, and I'll have that answer by your next meeting.
Other discussion on the work plan? Supervisor Pfiffer, please.
Administrator Leonard, can you give a quick update on the tax delinquent parcels backlog and how progress is going on that?
Sure. So as you may know, we did transition to implementing the in-rem process. So we're going through that court process. I spoke with Corporation Counsel and Treasurer Beiersdorf some time ago. The court process was delayed a little bit. I believe it should be in May when that first round of properties is going through. But again, I can follow up to make sure our timeline is working well. As Kim has reported to HR Finance recently in the past, the other change we made as a result of the work of the HR Finance and Property Committee is Kim worked to set up our work with Wisconsin Surplus to move those previously taken parcels to auction. That has gone relatively well. I think I just got an email again, as did Kim today, on another auction that had closed. So kudos to certainly Kim, but also the Wisconsin Public Surplus team. They've done a good job of getting those properties out there. The next step for us to do after consulting with Christie relative to kind of how that process should close out on the receiving end, we're going to do some work relative to getting that more automated with ACH, but it's going well. I don't know, Kim, if you have anything else to add on the sales side. I think it's going great.
We've got 2 more parcels that sold this week. So.
Yeah, 2 more sold this week, so that's going very well. I do also know that in the work with we started, I believe, with about 50 properties on the in-rem for the first batch. A number of those have actually have taken the steps to become current, so we're not going to take 50 properties. So people have taken action to become current on their tax obligation and tax debt. But I can follow up with Corporation Counsel Purner to make sure we have the right date, if it's still yet this month or if it got bumped into June. Yeah, I thought so too. At the end of May is what my recollection was.
Supervisor Robinson.
I'll just pick up on that. I think there have been a number of changes, and there more work needs to be done because we still have a significant backlog. As it relates to tax delinquency, after 10 years, we have to write off the county's portion of the back taxes. So if you're in the 11th year, we can't go back and collect 11 years, but only 10. So I think we've been focusing on trying to address some of those older tax delinquencies so that we don't lose out on that. That becomes important because of the recent Hennepin case before the Supreme Court, where when we sell the property, we can't make a profit, or it's a takings. But our process is, and we look at them, and there are many players. You've got the Treasurer's Office involved through the tax deed process and sort of alerting us. The Corporation Counsel involved in the review, and the Clerk's Office involved once we take title to it in the disposition of that property through the surplus program and others. I think one of the things that one of the improvements that's been made is they're engaging and communicating with the banks that have skin in the game a little bit earlier, and as a result, I think we're seeing the banks buy back or extends additional funds so that they don't go tax delinquent, but rather that the banks don't lose out on their holdings. But there have been some recent changes in the law reflecting some of the concerns relative to the Hennepin case that we need to deal with. But I think we are working diligently to try to reduce the backlog, improve the processes, and all players have been very good to work with. But the NREM process lets us take them in a batch versus individually through tax foreclosure. I think that the municipalities can jumpstart that process by making the request under Chapter 75 of the statutes, and maybe we need to do a better job of working with other local units of government who are concerned about tax delinquent property that we have not taken to try to move that along. But significant improvements have been made in the last 2 years.
Okay, other questions? Other questions on the work plan? All right. We are down to committee members are asked to bring ideas to the future for future discussion. And the next meeting is scheduled for June 13th, 2024, 3 o'clock. And we're down to item number 9. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Arstead, second by Supervisor Drabek to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see everyone in a few short hours.
Question for you. I had a list actually of questions.
I was going to try to pull you guys because your agenda is getting things
In relative terms, it's